Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin today, I want to thank my sponsors, my anchor sponsors, my friends from Las Pichoneras, Jake, Sergio, and Jonathan. And also want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you call David Gastelum. His number is 760-235-9576. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience. He will not only help you buy a property, but he'll help you along the way in one of your most important purchases in your life. So you should contact David, find him on Facebook, or give him a call, 760-235-9576. And today we're back in Calexico. I haven't been in Calexico in a while, talking to somebody from my own city. Been in Brawley and in El Centro. But today I'm back in Calexico, and today I'm here with Lucio Padilla Jr., who is the Director of Curriculum Technology.
Instructional Technology
for the Calexico Unified School District. Thank you for being, Lucio.
Thank you, Jose. Real excited. Thank you for having me on your show.
Normally when I have somebody on my show, I ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves, before you got to where you're at right now. Are you a Calexico born and raised, or?
Yeah, actually, I've been here since probably soon after birth. But I was born in King City, California, but it's been just a few months old. I've been here in Calexico, just a proud son of migrant parents, proud of Calexico schools. Spent my entire career here. I've been I was a teacher for 9 years, both at the elementary and the secondary level. I was a principal for 7 years for Jefferson Elementary, and then I'm in my current position for the past 5 years as Director of Instructional Technology.
So if you could put it like in layman's words, what is the Director of Technology, Director of Instructional Technology do here in the district?
So I think what I'm real excited about, just really proud to be part of our school district that has been investing a lot of money in technology. They really have been tremendously supportive, and really forward thinking in terms of increasing access for technology to students. And really, what my main role is to provide leadership and expertise in the area of the instructional use of technology. Right. So there's just crucial components to technology. Obviously, one of it is the infrastructure, sustainability of that infrastructure, but then that other than crucial component is how's it being used for instruction to make an impact in the lives of students. And so that's I think we have just a great team overall in Calexico. I think we have a tremendous amount of leadership and just some very, very talented staff, not only here at the district office, but also at the school sites. And so I'm real proud to be part of what I feel is something real special has been happening in Calexico, especially in terms of technology, overall in technology, and also in the instructional part.
Yeah, and your position, are there any people in the county that do the same thing, or?
So, as to my knowledge, it's probably although it's maybe a unique position in the Valley, it's more common in some of the bigger cities. You see it a lot more in San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Santa Clara area. You see a lot more of the positions that I currently hold. And so it really, I think it speaks a lot for it to be in a position where there's an investment on both sides of that technology, just making it real important to have it. So I think we're probably the only one here in the Imperial Valley.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of shows that we're trying to move forward in terms of looking forward and making sure that we're ready for the change, because we all know that there's a lot of changes that are going on. I mean, just thinking about cell phones or podcasting, it's changing, and education is really hasn't changed much, and I don't know, maybe like a century. I don't know how that we had like an educational system in our country, but it's basically the same. It's been the same for a long time, and implementing technology in schools is a crucial part, because when you go into the real world, you're obviously going to start using technology.
Yes.
How do you feel that that we're moving forward in terms of making sure that our students and our staff is ready for that change?
Yeah, I think, the process started, it started 5 years ago, and it really started by having a committee. We have a district technology committee here at the district. We have representation from different stakeholders. And it began before we started making any investments. It really came by really talking about what teaching and learning would look like in Calexico, and what role technology would play. And we've been developing our plan in those different components. And so definitely having a very strong infrastructure has been one. And I think we have a very, very strong infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And then certainly then the other piece is that increase to access, right? And so we came with a lot of work need to be done, but through the support of ALCAP, we're approaching very close to having 100% of our teaching staff with a device that is 4 years or less. And so it's been taking a long time to be able to upgrade, but we're getting there to 100% with our teaching staff. And then we've been expanding in one-to-one access very strategically through recommendations to the tech committee to be providing those one-to-one learning environment for our students. And then that third component then has just been really the professional development for it. So we got infrastructure, we got access to technology for our teachers, for our students, and then the next big piece is in that professional development piece. And certainly there's a few other crucial pieces to it. And so those are the ones that we're working on. I think that kind of leads into what you were referring to, right? So you can have all the technology and all the training, but then there really has to be a huge shift in the way of thinking. Yeah. And that's where there's been a lot of our focus lately. And so one of the struggles that we encountered was, okay, we got technology and I'm getting training, but we're still expected to follow these steps or these procedures. And so change was perhaps a little bit more challenging, and understandably so, right? So for example, report card, but the report card is still the same. And so the progress monitoring is still the same, and the assessments are still the same. And so what we were asking teachers to do in terms of the use of technology perhaps wasn't matching what they were going to be asked to report out with students. Yeah. So let's just talk about what we're doing right now. I mean, podcasting is super awesome, right? But one of the things that might hold a teacher back will say, well, how's that going to fit into the report card? How's that going to reflect on SBAC testing? Mm. Do I think students should be given a voice? Absolutely. And what we're doing today is a perfect example of the things that we can be doing with our students, giving them a powerful voice, sending out their voice out to the world, having them share their story, sharing out their message, advocating for the things that they believe. But one of the things that can be a real big barrier for it is, well, there's no assessment for it. Yeah. There's no assessment at the site. There's no assessment at the state level. It's not being reported out into the report card. So one of the things that we're really working is how do we start making those shifts in terms of philosophy, in terms of pedagogy, in terms of this is something that's just really good for kids, whether or not it's in our traditional testing, and then just even because we have begun, interestingly enough, today, we've been working with all our kindergarten teachers across the district, and we've been working with them to redesign our kindergarten report card. And actually today, it's been a super exciting day because we finalized the kindergarten report card. And it is really, I think when people will see it, I think they'll begin to see some of that evidence of that shift of progressive thinking, forward thinking. I'm actually interested in showing it to our first group of parents to start seeing it, reviewing it, giving us feedback, because I think it's going to be quite different than what most people are used to seeing. Yeah.
So you've been here at this position 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That you taught. You were a teacher and then principal.
Mm-hmm.
When was it that you were like, you know what, I want to focus on, or when did you decide you want to go into education first? Like,
yeah, it's an interesting story. I think, and it's a story that I've been reliving a lot lately because I have a daughter that's about to go to college. She's a senior. And so, I reflect a lot now just on seeing my daughter about to make decisions about college. And one of my reflections that is coming real close to home is that, I think early on I was looking at a career that had to do with technology. I was looking at DeVry. I was looking at ITT. I was kind of looking a little bit more on the technical side, so I kind of already had I would like technology, and then about a month before graduation, I'm not sure if you know, I'm pretty sure you know Juan Rodriguez, teacher at Enrique Camarena. I don't even know why Juan at the time came and was serving. I was a senior, so I didn't know him. That was the first time I met him. He pulled me into the office kind of like for a counseling session. It was more like an academic counseling session. And he was like, oh, you know what? If you're going to go into a trade school, he was like, I definitely recommend that you go to Mortar DeVry. That gives you more like a bachelor's degree in technology. I wouldn't recommend just, something that's going to give you like a 2-year certificate. And so he gave me, like I said, I'm assuming it was some sort of counseling role. I can't tell you exactly the detail why he pulled me in, but he pulled me in.
But he was already an employee of the district?
I'm not even sure what his role was. That's what makes it so interesting. I just know it was Juan. It was Juan Rodriguez. And it was about a month before graduation. He pulled me in and he wanted to talk to me about my goals and what I had planned. And so I kind of saw him as a counselor. I guess next time I'll see him, I'll ask him, hey, why did you pull me out? Yeah. Right? But he pulled me out as a counselor and we're having a conversation. And about... I think the conversation impacted me quite a bit. I left there and I said, you know what? I kind of left discouraged about going for a certificate in technology, and I remember just going home and I remember telling my dad, I said, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay here for IVC and I'm going to go into study to be a teacher. As a matter of fact, a few weeks later, I was already enrolled, started. I graduated, probably a Wednesday, Thursday, maybe a Friday. By Monday, I was in school at IVC, starting my career as a teacher. And I was off and running. Interesting enough, though, at about maybe 3 years into my career. At that point, my career had just been focused on teaching. I'm not sure if you know Luis Torres. Yeah. I was talking to Luis, and he's a real close friend of mine. And Luis asked me, hey, well, how much you know about technology? And so, I hadn't really kept up, other than I had an interest. I hadn't really kept up. And I said, not much. And he was like, it's pretty embarrassing. You're a teacher. You should know about technology. And again, it was one of those, it was a statement that it hit home. It was like, it's just like, it kind of made sense. And soon after, there was an application called for a grant. It was called Desert Without Borders. It was a grant that the Imperial County Office of Ed had. Leading the grant at that time was a period of transition was Mike Castillo, who's now one of our current board members. And before that, I didn't know Mike, but Mike was he was in a lead position and soon after became the director for technology there at the county office, overseeing the grant. And it was just a great grant where they would they paid you a stipend. They gave you a Sony Mavica, one of those with a floppy disk. Yeah. They gave me a MacBook.
No, let me correct you. It wasn't little. It was it was big. I remember those. Yeah. If you had to put in a floppy disk, imagine the size of a floppy disk. So It wasn't little.
Yeah, it was one of those big Sony Mavicas, the floppy disk, and they gave you a MacBook or a computer of your choice. I chose a MacBook, and then we got a camcorder, and it was all training on the new standards, the new California standards, and just really training, really centered on standards and how to use technology to support the standards. That's how I got to go to my first Q conference, and it was just ongoing training there at the county. And I developed just a passion for technology. I really started working with a lot with my students at the time at Mains, and I remember Mike was just very supportive. If I wanted to do something, he'd find a way to lend me either equipment, or we started video conferencing, which was brand new at the time. And they would Viacom, and they would charge you for video conferencing. And Mike, out of his funds for the county office, he would pay the fees for the video conferencing. So our very, very first video conference, we took like a field trip, if you will, from Mains Elementary at the time. Came over to the boardroom. Bob Simon, who was the director of technology for the school district at the time, he set up the equipment that Viacom set up in the boardroom, and we had just an hour session with the San Diego Zoo at the time. A phenomenal experience, field trip experience. We were just seeing the animals and interacting with their staff, learning about them. And then we had two more that were hosted. One then at the library at Maine's, and then the third one was in my classroom there at Maine's. And so we invite some different teachers. And I remember, again, once more, just tremendous amount of support from a lot of different folks, definitely from Mike, who would provide the funds. And then he also would lend me quite a bit of equipment. I remember, so they were always been my favorite. I was special place on my heart for them. But those iBooks that were like a little suitcase with the real colorful ones. I had like 7 of those in my classroom. Then we did an actual field trip to the San Diego Zoo, and I remember taking like Tony's 10 Sony Mavicas, and we did a project that got published in the Q magazine. And I remember going with the Sony Mavicas, and I remember people were concerned, right? Well, because it was second graders. They're like, well, what happens if the camera breaks? And it was interesting because it didn't go through my mind what would happen, if it broke. What was going through my mind was the experience, the experience that I wanted to provide and for them to have and to be able to come and produce their presentations, present their presentation, to use their videos. And it was really just embracing the mentality, you never want it to break, but if it breaks, it breaks, right?
It could happen to your own equipment.
To your own equipment. It was more of thinking, it's what I'm looking for them to gain, and it's been a mentality that I think has served me well over the years. Just really more thinking about the opportunities as opposed to what could go wrong if something breaks.
And now that you mentioned like the schools you worked at, you worked at Maine's, and Maine's has a demographic of
lower
income students. Jefferson has kind of like a mix of both. And it's kind of fun that because when I was growing up, none of this existed, so like it would have been fun like to go out, even like the video conferencing. I remember because it's funny because you mentioned all these things, and I've been working for the district for like 20 years now, so like I remember like setting up for like the Viacom video conferencing and stuff like that, like using the big mic and the camera that looked kind of like a like a little robot. And it's crazy, that it's taking me back to like to all that, and now to where we're at. Because when I left high school, we were barely like getting computers that had the internet on them, and now it's like we have thousands of Chromebooks that can connect to the. But like going back to what we were saying about the experience, having them use the technology and just something new to them is something that and it's the demographic you were working with. It's kind of like it's true that maybe these kids, if they were from home, they would never be able to experience these kinds of things. So it's pretty cool that and I mean I remember when Mike was running the Desert Without
Borders.
It's crazy. It's taking me back. You mentioned Q. You recently got an award from Q. What was your award for?
So so Q does just an awesome opportunity of supporting affiliates, and so obviously Q is just a huge organization dedicated to professional development and educational technology across the state, and they support affiliates, and affiliates can form when there's a region in the area and they decide to come as an affiliate of Q and support the mission of Q. And so about probably a little over 2 years ago, or about 3 years ago, we began the process. I and some just really great, awesome educators from across the valley. They're just we're all share the same passion for technology. We came together and we went through the process of applying to Q to be endorsed and recognized and accepted as an affiliate. And so we are Imperial Valley Q. And so across the state of California and even in Nevada, there's 22 different affiliates. We have San Diego Q, there's a Q at Coachella, LA Q, and San Francisco Q. And there's just 22 different affiliates across the state. And so they had this award for the first time, and so I was recognized as the affiliate leader of the year, and it was just in recognition of my work as the leader. I'm the board president for Imperial Valley Q, and it was just it was just a huge honor because I see Q has some phenomenal people working for them everywhere, and I mean, I couldn't even believe it that they had selected me, right? Because I know the kind of talent that they have. So it was just truly humbled and honored. And I think more than anything, it's been a reflection of the talent that we have in the Valley, right? Because the affiliate is we have 7 board members from across the Valley. We have just some outstanding educators from El Centro. We have Fernando Reyes here from Calexico, Antonio Ramayor from El Centro, Ascension Reyes, some of the names that might be familiar to you, Norma Gomez, Jessica Ortega, Edward Avelar. And so we all are very passionate. And we have a lot of educators that are also support the affiliate, that they haven't wanted to take an official board position. But we've also just benefited tremendously because we have a great partnership with the Imperial County Office of Education. Dr. Todd Fennell, who's the superintendent for our county superintendent, is just a huge supporter of technology. And
I remember back in the day, he was in charge of the technology department.
I mean, just obviously you're familiar with Todd and his leadership that he's provided for the county and across the state, and how well he's recognized. And so he's just with him and his staff, Terry Sanders, and we also have a great partnership with Jeff Enns at Imperial Valley College. And so annually we come together, ICOE, Imperial Valley College, and then IVQ, and we put together our annual event, which is Tech de Mayo. It's always on the first Cinco de Mayo weekend. We got ours coming up this Saturday, May 4th. We're super excited. We're just gonna have a full slate of very talented educators I'm very excited because this year we're actually having presenters from outside the Valley come over to Tech de Mayo and present. And then we have Leslie Fisher. Leslie Fisher is just phenomenal, dynamic keynote speaker that leaves you with like a ton of ideas that you can do on Monday when you come back to your classroom. So she'll be our keynote speaker. So just super excited. It's always an annual event. It's real nice to be doing it in collaboration with other organizations, and I just think it just needs evidence to how special things can be when you're working in collaboration with different people and with different organizations. And I think you were kind of asking me about my career a little while ago, and it's this kind of thing that I wanted to share. I there was a time when I was very competitive, right? And I wanted to, you always wanted to compete, and you wanted to perform well and for the area that you were working on. And it's been several years now where I just think that I've really been able to just kind of embrace forget the competitiveness, just kind of working together with different people, with whoever wants to work, and just the power of working and networking. Just a huge part of my role today. It really is networking, getting to meet other people, getting to be able to share resources, learn from others. And it's been something that has served me well over the years. And certainly I think, even just like with the work through IVQ, it's evidence of that. Something that we're trying to promote a lot here within the district, but also across districts. And then just really as we're beginning to see us being able to, and I can't take credit for it because we have some folks that are really good at it here in the Valley, but they began to branch out and wanting to work with other districts across Southern California. And we're seeing that partnership and working together, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. I think this Tech de Mayo is going to be the best ever. And I think because you're starting to see us being able to grow, network, connect, and just bring different expertise with different talents here to the Valley. So for people that go, I think they're going to be tremendously pleased with the quality. I think it's always been great, and it just keeps getting better and better. And you see that evidence.
Yeah, and you bring up networking, and that's something that I've also learned from doing the podcast. Like, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of really interesting people, and a lot of them see the the goal and what I'm trying to do, just to inform the community, and kind of put the spotlight on people that I feel the community should get to know, because they're some way or another they're impacted by them, and a lot of people see that and they're like, you should talk to so and so. Here's their number, or let me know, and I'll reach out to them so they can reach out to you, blah blah. But it's a really we're in the same valley, we benefit from each other's success. So I think that especially with having the IVQ, it's important that you bring, especially people from the valley, chime in and their ideas, because we're a unique valley. I think something that I've always, maybe brought up in meetings that we've had with the technology communities, like, are we looking into other districts that are having success that are really similar to us? And I mean, it might be really hard, but like if you look at other school districts here in the valley that have the same, kind of demographic that we do, it's a good way to kind of like measure, stuff that we could use that's already done by somebody else that has the same demographic. It's a good way to do that, and it's good that we have the IVQ in the valley.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tech the Mile. Make sure you guys go out there if you're. Is it only for educators, or is it?
It's open to anyone who's interested. I know this year we're trying to really also cater a lot more to the community college as well. Definitely would encourage librarians, anyone that really has an interest in working with children in whatever role that they have, has an interest in working with children or students and how technology supports their work. If that's something that is of your passion, then I think Tech the Mile is perfect for you. We have a variety of sessions. We got things from 3D printing to amplifying student voice, the use of video, and just definitely a lot of Google apps. So we just have a lot of different sessions to support really the mission about how to support the effective use of technology in the classroom. And definitely we're opening it up to staff in whatever capacity, whether it's working in the after school program. We just had recently, we had the Day of Play. It was hosted by IVQ. We had it here at Jefferson. We put it kind of last minute and didn't advertise as much, but we had a free event, and it was just some of the Valley's finest coming over and just having playgrounds, and you could come over and just test out whatever they had. So we had green screen, 3D printing, augmented reality, virtual reality, and we have one of our staff members from our after school program who's using she's using Makey Makey. I don't know if you're familiar with Makey Makey.
Oh, I think my son used it in the summer.
I mean, it was just impressive stuff, right? I mean, there was a lot of impressive stuff in it, but I was like, wow, if I was in school here, and I mean, I would want access to it, not just after school, but during school too, right? Just real impressive stuff. Is you have all these things that connect, and you program them using Scratch to do different sounds or to record voice. And so she literally had like a little piano where you would tap it with your toes, or you would tap it to fruit, and you just program it, right? When I touch here, it's going to make the sound.
Okay, yeah. And you connect it with little, I think I've seen it.
Totally awesome. It was blowing me away. And so definitely, and that's one of those things that technology is so vast, right? There's so many different fields, so many different areas. You just can't be an expert in all of it. And so why it becomes so important to just really leverage those partnerships, that networking. It's just really is a piece where we're all better by working together, and it truly is. I think in all terms of instruction, and definitely in terms of instructional technologies, because it's just an area. I gave up trying to learn all these new things. You just can't keep up. You got Raspberry Pi, and you got all these different Arduinos. It's just hard to do. It's for kind of where I just started embracing more from a leadership standpoint. How can I support, encourage for different teachers that are interested in it to go out and learn these new tools and support them and bring them back. I sent out to a few folks. They had a free Raspberry Pi Academy, and I haven't heard from a few of the folks that I sent it out to, but one of them in particular, Luis Garcia from the high school, he applied to the Raspberry Pi Academy, and it's a free academy sponsored and provided by Raspberry Pi, and so he got accepted. So this summer in Irvine, he's going to be spending a couple of days, and he'll come out on Raspberry Pi certified. And so I'm super excited for with students in Calexico High School that'll benefit from Mr. Garcia that are participating in the academy, and not sure. I don't want to mention anything because I'm not sure who else might have applied, but I know Louis for sure. He sent me his acceptance letter through email, and so I'm super excited about him going, and that's really what's become my role, right? So kind of think of also with Mario Magallanes and Louis to the robotics program. We're in their third year of the first robotics for high schools. There's only about, I believe, like three high schools in the valley that have a robotics team. And with again, going back to networking, we met with JP, who's a teacher at Central, who has a robotics team there. He has like over 10 years of experience. Mr. Garcia expressed an interest. We went over, we visited. We love what it was doing for their students. We love the stories of how their students were really getting truly prepared for college, and he was just a wealth of support with a lot of guidance. Go here to write this grant. Go here to apply. Do this, do that. Why don't you guys come over and test out your robot over here with us? We'll have some competition between us. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they were here at Calexico High School last year. And
they brought their robots in. Just
a wonderful example again of how we're all just better together through networking, collaborations, connecting, and and it really is how do we support students from the valley and getting those type of experiences, and we all accomplish that by not wanting to be competitive, but rather supportive of each other, encouraging each other. And he was tremendously encouraging. Obviously, needless to say that we had a tremendous and a wealth of support here in Calexico from a ton of people, principal, our after school coordinator, our superintendent, our board. And so we had a wealth of support to put this together. And so we're in our third year of the first robotics team here in Calexico. They just competed in Los Angeles. And I know that they're just getting better and better. And every year when you hear the stories, of the seniors getting accepted in colleges for engineering, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what you put in those hours for.
Yeah.
Going back to, changes. I know one of the projects that I've been, it's kind of like in the works because of, I've seen the surveys that you've done with the kids. The library at the high school. Mm-hmm. Books are, it's kind of sad to say, but, they're becoming a little bit obsolete now. Mm-hmm. And in reality, our library, we have books in it that were just sitting there. I know that you guys want to turn the library at the high school into a media center, or what?
Yeah. So, and it's something that's going to get accelerated here a little bit towards the end of this year. But we had, again, thanks to the LCAP committee, who endorsed and supported to have $100,000 this year to convert our high school library into a makerspace multimedia lab. And so when you think of the term makerspace, right, and one of those other new areas in technology, right, and certainly not an area where I consider myself an expert by any means, but leveraging some connections. I was a part of an academy where at the KCI Cross Center for Innovation in Santa Clara. Was able to get some resources, some surveys, and just getting someone that kind of be able to walk you through the process and how to design a makerspace and point you in the right direction was just huge. So what we did was we did some surveys at the high school. We did it we had over 1,000 students participate in the survey, and we just asked them like a ton of questions, like if we had a multimedia center at the library, what would you want, right? If we had a makerspace, what would you want to have to be able to make stuff, right? So some of the options were like 3D printers or sewing machines or drills, bits, or Legos, it was, or would you want to produce music? Would you want DJ equipment? Would you want gaming? So we had a very extensive list to collect data from students in terms of if we were to modernize our library, what would you want it in there? So from there we met. We also then in the survey asked them, would you want to be a part of transforming our library? And so we had some students that responded there. We had a meeting there at the Calexico High School library that was very well attended. And essentially what we're going to do is we're putting it in the hands of students and saying, here's some money. I think we told them they had 80,000. Here's 80,000 for you. What would you do for 80,000? And I know you got to see and we can talk a little bit more about that afterward, but you got to see a little bit of the digital learning project where we had teachers competing for a grant for a one-to-one. Yeah. But we're doing the same thing with students. So we're telling students, come and make your proposal. We're going to have a panel for you. And we gave them some tools, some guidance, some things to look for. And so we gave them some research to be able to guide them in the right ways to look at. And essentially we're going to have them present to a panel and say, if I had 80,000, this is what I would propose that we did for our library. They'd have to have a budget, very detailed budget, very detailed list, very detailed design. And,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have the students compete and design it. And they had the choice of saying, you know what, I only want to design this corner, right? Mm-hmm. With 20,000, I design this corner here. Or we're given the option of saying, you got 80,000. What would you do for 80,000? And it's not a one shot funding. We're gonna look at least multiple years of funding to really, really ask ourselves, in today's modern world, what should a high school look like? And the goal is to say, how can we serve our students for the students that we serve today, as opposed to a library that was there to support students that was from a long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. And you see that when you see the library, and it's not a criticism. It's just reality. It probably is a reality.
It's sad, but it's
reality. And so we're going to put it in the hands of students. And I know that we've been a little bit on pause with that, but we're gonna kickstart it back up, and we're gonna go real fast. And we gotta get stuff going here before the end of the school year. So we're just another real exciting project in terms of.
But what, like, before the end of the school year, you would start with.
I would say no more than a month's time. We've already identified which projects we're supporting, whether it's coming from one group or multiple groups of students. And then start ordering the equipment, and it'll be phase one of multiple phases in transforming. So then the next piece then also becomes we've asked the students, and we've also asked for staff, because it goes back to the same thing when we started our conversation. One thing is access to the equipment. The other thing is what's going to be supporting the learning with it, right? So we've asked students that can help in a variety of ways. They can be part of the design team. We're going to have a team that's going to be part of the marketing, kind of be able to tracking and publicizing the updates and the progress of the library. Then we're doing the same with some students that just like to put things together, right? Let me put the furniture together, build stuff, put the equipment together, give me some hands-on experience, because I like to work with my hands and put stuff together. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to have students that are going to host workshops, right? I'm going to man the green screen booth, multimedia part of it, because I love green screen and I love video. Maybe we'll have a podcasting station, right? And so if we have a student that has a passion for podcasting, then this is some of the equipment that we can have there available for them. It'd be something that perhaps they'll have a podcast show, or they can help others learn about podcasting. And so we want to leverage the interest and the passions of students and staff. And so we're going to be doing the same thing with staff. If you have a passion in a particular area, and it doesn't have to be tech-based, right? Because the maker movement is making, building, tinkering. So it can be sewing, right? If you have a passion for sewing, then we'll have some sewing machines, and you have a passion for print screening and making T-shirts, then that's what it will be. It really is going to come to catering to the different passions and the different work that students and staff want to make part of the high school and available for our students. The idea is students learning by using the design process, building, creating, whether that's through AutoCAD or whether it's through drawing, or whether it's through scripts, whether it's through film production, or whether it's a podcast. So we're looking for interesting people in all areas, including podcasting there, Mr. Alejo. So,
I'm down. So, I love doing podcasting.
Certainly.
My new passion. I really enjoy it. And yeah, I mean, I think that podcasting could be a really, really big part of kind of like showing the students, showing how they're learning. Mm-hmm. don't know, maybe like a summary of whatever chapter they read, and maybe like share with their classmates, and they could use that as a study guide or whatnot. I don't know. I've been having a lot of ideas as to how you can incorporate podcasting into a classroom or whatnot. But you mentioned LCAP a lot. What is LCAP, or why does the community need to be involved and be part of the LCAP team?
LCAP is what dictates our funding for our school district, right? It's the local control, a formula that they have to fund schools and how it's going to use. It requires a plan for spending your money. And so in essence, if something is going to happen, for most part, it's because it's in the LCAP, right? So school fundings or district funding has different forms of getting money to support schools. But the major one, and certainly there's other, but the major one that we have right now to support parent involvement, student engagement, technology, it really revolves around a lot through LCAP. And so we have our goals within the instructional component. We have some very specific goals through technology. We have some very specific goals through school climate. We have some very specific goals through parent involvement. And so I keep mentioning LCAP because what the district does, and again, a tribute to our assistant superintendent, Elisa Ramirez, is just a phenomenal job of engaging all stakeholders. It's just a really long process of meeting throughout the year and reporting to different groups. She meets with our parents, she meets with CSEA, she meets with the teachers, she meets with admin, and she has a core group, and she does a really extensive process of meeting with different stakeholders to create this plan of how we're going to spend our money that we receive through LCAP. And so when it's in LCAP, then it's going to happen. It's going to happen because the money is there specifically in actions and goals to support it.
Kind of budgeted out for this project or what.
And so our department oversees the goals in technology, and we have a very specific set of goals through technology that we oversee. We have a couple of them that are in the curriculum part of the goals that we oversee as well, that they're technology related, and they're all revolved around those different components that I've been talking to you a lot about, right? It's infrastructure, it's access to tech, and it's professional development. And so that's where our money comes from. And so within those goals, they had the goal of converting our high school to a makerspace multimedia lab, really make it a place for our 21st century learners, our modern learners. And so when they asked me to lead the process, I love the multimedia part. That's one of the things that I consider an area of strength, but that makerspace wasn't quite an area of space. So it's something that I had to work with a few folks together. Carmina Ramirez has been a great resource. Obviously, the fact that we have her position as a district librarian, someone that we've been partnering with, obviously partnering with the high school, with Cynthia Salgado, we did a lot of work with them. And then obviously just working with Eduardo, who provides just a wealth of talent in all areas. So we're coming together as a team, just really pulling together, working with students to be able to convert our library. And so again, why it's happening or why it's going to happen, obviously all the actions have to be followed through, but the funding is there to support it. And so you can have all these dreams and all these goals and all these aspirations and all the things you want to do, but at the end of the day, if the funding isn't there, then it doesn't happen. Why are we making a lot of progress in terms of updating staff devices? It's supported through LCAP. Why are we doing a lot of movements through? And obviously the problem becomes because you can't do everybody at the same time, right? And so it's one of those things that is really hard, where you can't just say, oh, we want to become a 1-to-1 district across the district and just do it instantly, because there's money to support it, but it's not to do it all in 1 year. Yeah. And certainly when you think about our district, and if you see that graph of how many devices we had, and if you go to about 8 years ago when it was like, 500 devices, 700 devices, 1,200, and then all of a sudden when NASPAC came, it was boom, all of a sudden it was like 4,000 devices, 5,000 devices, and it just grew exponentially. And so at that time, definitely, and we're still investing heavily, our infrastructure became very important, right? You just can't go from a network that could support 1,000 devices to all of a sudden say, we want to support 6,000 devices. Yeah. We need to have a very, very strong infrastructure. And so we're working on all those major areas. We're working on them consistently, and they all support each other. They're all very important. You have the devices and the network isn't there to support it, then it does you no good, right? And you have the devices and you have the network, but there's no PD to transform any of the practices, then they're sitting in a corner locked up in a cow and so collecting dust. And so all those three phases are just tremendously important. And so it speaks to obviously to the staffing that we have in relations to technology. But it's just that, and then there you go. That's another one, just staffing. LCAP has supported. I don't know if I'm sure you remember, there was a time when we didn't have a site tech for every school, and so LCAP came in to support for us to have one per school, which again was just a huge support in the investment in terms of where we're going to technology, because with this huge increase, as I know you would agree, it'd just be impossible to support sharing text between schools with this huge increase into technology. So it supports our staffing, it supports our infrastructure, it supports our PD, and so it puts all those things together for it to start things moving along in a positive direction in terms of teaching and learning with our work with our students.
You mentioned one-to-one. People might be like one-to-one, but it's one-to-one like device per student. We are right now kind of piloting a little group of 6th grade teachers, right? That we're gonna give them a one-to-one device for their students. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'll go, if you don't mind, I'll go a little further back. We started, actually, when we first started that first year, getting that support funding through LCAP, and that's where that tech committee played a role, right? Because, there's never the perfect answer for everybody. I always wonder, where do you start? And you got to start somewhere. At the time, we started with providing all 3rd grade classrooms a one-to-one environment. So that meant every student in 3rd grade would have access to a Chromebook. And with that access to a Chromebook, so essentially every teacher would have a classroom set in a cow, be able to charge it easily. But we did it with knowing that they would start as part of an academy where they would come in. The goal was at least three trainings a year to support, them developing their skills in using technology in the classroom. So we started with 3rd grade, and then very interestingly, there was a new adoption for English language arts, and it happened for 6th grade all the way up to high school. And in those grade levels, 6th grade and through all English classrooms throughout the high school, they adopted an online textbook, right? And so Study Sync's the one for 6, 7, and 8, and we got Pearson on for 9 through 12. And so now if the student's textbook is online, then they need a device, right? So it just put us in a huge hurry to create one-on-one environments from 6th grade all through 12 in language arts. Through recommendations, we then went with history. We currently have all history teachers 7 through 12 having access to a one-to-one Chromebook environment, and they're looking very likely that they're going to have an online textbook potentially, as well as they're I believe piloting, and they'll be going through the adoption probably within a year's time. Next after that, we have science looking at textbook adoption. And so we're looking at a very interesting things in a lot of different formats in terms of what we're doing with textbook adoptions. I don't want to share too much into it, but we're looking into some new things that might be out there and really transforming what we do in terms of curriculum. But in essence, it explains how we began the one-on-one environments across our districts. We've invested in some other areas as well. This year we had an opportunity. We were predominantly one-on-one in 4th grade as well. And then we did an academy. We knew when we started working at the K2 that we wanted to go with iPads. And we didn't want to go with a full grade level. So we essentially did an application-based pilot at the K2 where we told teachers that if they were ready to use technology, they needed to apply, they needed to answer some essay questions. And we approve a group of 22 teachers. They all have a one-to-one iPad environment. And we've been going through a series of trainings with them this year, and we have their last one coming up next Monday, April 15th. We're gonna have some folks with Apple here on that day. They'll be here to deliver part of the training, so we're very, very excited. So they're working on a one-on-one iPad environment, and then obviously we want to continue to build on that K2 group. But right now we took 22 teachers that signed up and said we're ready to take a lead, and I want to have some cool tools in our hands and really start working and transforming our instructional practices. So we have that group this year, and we created another small group at the secondary level this year. But then to the question that you were speaking of, we had one of our board members, Lorenzo Calderon. He was sharing. He had a couple of nephews up in Tustin, and he really liked what they were doing in Tustin in terms of access to technology. He wanted us to go visit, and so we were able to organize an interesting, going back to networking. I don't remember his exact title. I'm not sure if it's assistant superintendent. I believe it's assistant superintendent of Tustin right now. Happens to be the former president for Q. Mm-hmm. So I was able to I felt a little comfortable being able to reach out to him because I knew his relationship with Q, was able to reach out and leverage a visit. And so we went. It was our superintendent, Mr. Gonzalez, assistant soup, two of our board members, Ciro Calderon joined us, Eduardo joined us, Jesus Bravo joined us, and we went and we were received by their superintendent, and then we were guiding a tour to one of their elementary, middle school, and high school campuses, and we were just thrilled with what we saw. Right, it was just every student in 6 through 12 has access to a laptop that they can take home. Right, and in their case, they were currently working with a very thin, ultra thin Toshiba. So it wasn't a Chromebook. You're talking about a full functioning, powerful laptop that they'd be able to take home. And I think they were in transition into a new type of model, but not quite sure. But we got to see, and then they were using iPads K5, but those stayed on campus. And we just loved what they saw. I mean, the level of articulation between grade levels, you could see how students' skill sets were being built from 6th grade on up. Skill sets in animation, skill sets in video, skill sets in coding, skill sets to develop to engineering. And it was just really nice to see the level of work that they had and how they supported each other between levels. And so we loved what we saw, right? And so we came back, been having a lot of conversations about how do we replicate that? How do we start it at a very small pilot, something manageable, something for us to small enough for us to be able to make it work, learn from experiences. We made some great connections there at Tustin that we're going to leverage and be able to get some more resources from them in terms of their learning from the beginning, their notifications, their communications to home, their policies, and so forth. But we're actually really excited because what we did is we were able to allocate within LCAP that we had enough to support 7 classrooms. And so we're going to move to provide 7 of our 6th grade classrooms with a MacBook Air, one-to-one. Key thing here is just like Tustin is, students can take the device home. Mm-hmm. They get to take the laptop home, right? It's not just having access to it in the campus. And we did an application. The first phase was we needed to have teachers from the entire grade level willing to commit together as a team. We had the tech committee serve as an audience, And you were able to enjoy part of that process from the audience. We asked them some really good questions, and they had a great presentation answering those questions. We had a rubric, so we selected the 6th grade team from Cesar Chavez. We're definitely a lot of kudos and real proud and happy to them that they took that step and working together as a team and willing to take this exciting project. We then move into phase 2. We wanted to be able to support a few more teachers that'd be willing to in this case, they didn't have to be with the entire team, but we had enough funding for 3 more classrooms. And so we had 6 applicants. And so in a couple of weeks, we look forward to interviewing or having them present in front of the tech committee. And we're going to narrow those 6 applications to 3. We're gonna look at selecting the 3 teachers that we feel that are best prepared to take on, because you're talking about some heavy investment, right?
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of commitment. You don't want to make that kind of commitment, and you really want to see level of preparedness, level of commitment, because that's exactly what it is. It's a huge responsibility. I think it's a huge responsibility to look at a Chromebook one-on-one environment, but you're talking about a full functioning, powerful laptop that's going to go home, that if they don't have internet access at home, we're going to provide them with internet access at home. And so the message really has been to the participating teachers is that this is a very progressive opportunity where we're looking for some very progressive education moving forward. All right, we can't have this level of investment with traditional teaching practices next to some very high-end, expensive commitment in terms of technology. We have to have a commitment. Obviously, from our end, we're very committed to professional development, time for planning. We're making a commitment to bringing them in and giving them some time to plan the summer before the school year starts. We're actually looking at starting their training this year. We've ordered the devices. They're en route. So they're en route. They'll be here soon. And we're looking to start training next month. We're waiting to identify the next group of teachers. As soon as we identify them, we're ready to start beginning their training as soon as possible. And we have a lot of work to be ready to kick off for next school year. And I've heard that the students, 5th grade students from Cesar Chavez, have already been informed, and I heard that they're thrilled. And I can only imagine, right? What an opportunity that you're going to go to school, you're going to have a MacBook Air, your teacher's going to be trained, and just the level of opportunity in terms of well, first of all, what the access that it provides to you, and then being very, very strategic, very specific in the skill sets that you want to develop. So just to kind of walk you through the training process, it really starts with a lot of reflections and conversations. And the conversation starts with, what are your hopes and dreams for your students? Right? And when you identify your hopes and dreams for your students, and you say, this is a school that I would want to be in here myself. Right? And then we can make everything else happen. Right? If this is your ideal, if this is your goals, if this is the shared beliefs of everyone in the group participating, then we can really start developing that professional development and how to make them. If we want, and I'm just as an example, if the group says we believe in student agency, and so in layman terms, what a student agency means, it means providing students voice and choice. Okay, sounds cool. But what does that really mean? And what does that really mean in the classroom? And what does voice and choice mean? Because voice and choice means the students are advocates for their own learning. It means they get to be co-partners with their teachers to decide their educational experiences, and then that they're given those opportunities in front of authentic audiences to be able to present their learnings. And so it can't be an environment where you're saying, well, the textbook's going to dictate what you're going to learn next, right? Because if we're saying we want you to be an advocate of your own learning, then we got to give them that opportunity to really think, reflect, advocate what they'd like to learn, cater their passions and their desires, still involved with academic rigorous standards, but based on things that they find relevant and meaningful. And that's what makes the job difficult. It really is some very, very difficult work. It really is a different way of approaching instruction. But I believe very firmly that the rewards are just going to be seen just tremendously huge, right? The impact the engagement, the connection, the you're not doing this for me as a teacher to please me, but you're doing some work that's going to make a positive impact in the lives of other people, and you're going to get to present it in front of other people, and the motivation goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Your work just means so much more. We're so used to asking students, what do you want to do when you graduate from high school? That's going away. What we're going to say now is we're going to give you access to some great technology, but we're going to ask you, what do you want to do right now to make a positive impact in the life of others? And it's right now. Forget, not obviously we're building their skill toward when they graduate high school, but it's about you making a difference right now. And so that's what really is what we're looking for in terms of the transformation in the classroom. And to do that, it really starts by having those shared goals. And then once you have those shared goals, develop it. And if the goals are to have that student agency, then it starts by asking students, what do you want to learn about? Where would you like to make a difference in the lives of others, or to community, or an impact in the world? And then that's where the creativity comes for us as educators to design lessons, units of study, and those opportunities for students to grow and learn.
You talk about, PD and giving all this technology to students, but how are we planning to, get the parents ready? Because, at the end of the day, it's a big commitment that, their kid is taking this, I don't know, like $1,500 piece of equipment home, and it's because the demographic from Tustin to our demographic here is not, it's not the same. We have, maybe kids that live with their grandparents, and it's gonna be hard for them to help them out, or
Yeah. So I'll start speaking to that because it actually happens to be a question that comes up often, right? And not just in this work, but in other work that we've done. There's always some that sense of asking the question of, well, what if this and what if that, and what happens here? There's always the what ifs, right? And so really, the huge answer to that is the best we can do is look within ourselves and say, what are we passionate, excited about, and how can we make it work, and how can we start doing work, and how can then, the reality is if we want students to be critical thinkers, then we got to be critical thinkers ourselves, right? If we want students to be risk takers, we have to be risk takers ourselves, right? And so, is there a certain level of risk taking that we're going to take here? You know what? Absolutely. Right? There absolutely is, right? But we can't, it's not fair for us to say, we want students working together in teams collaboratively. We want students to be creative. We want students to be independent thinkers. We want students to be risk takers because they got to be prepared to take on the world when the world's in their hands. And then us not do it. And then us not collaborate. Us not think critically. Us not take risks. So we got to model. We all of us need to model the very behaviors that we want for that we're asking for our students. And so to speak to the parents, we actually began so right now we have several academies. So once we give a group of teachers a one-to-one environment, they're just on continuous training with us, and we mention them as one of our cohorts, one of our academies, and year to year we bring them in for trainings. And this year we started what we're calling our Modern Parent Academy. We scheduled 4. When we're looking at a 5th session this year, we went district wide with the recruiting. We have about 18 parents, and in our Modern Parent Academy, that's the exact title that we use. We've had 2 sessions. We're meeting once a month. Our next one is scheduled that first Wednesday in May, and then we got the last Wednesday in May, and then we're gonna do a 5th one. We haven't scheduled the date yet, but we're gonna do a screening of the movie Most Likely to Succeed with them. And, it's very interesting because I think oftentimes we feel that the assumption is that the parents wouldn't understand, right? That the parents would only understand the system that they're familiar with. You come to school, you do your homework, you work for A's, and A is good and everything else is not as good. And we have... It's easy to fall into that belief of thinking that the parents wouldn't embrace or understand a system that's different. I can share that in my early experience working with our parents, I can say that if the parent has no idea and you change the system, yeah, they wouldn't support it. But if you're bringing them in and you're talking to them and you're sharing your story, you're sharing why we need to move, it's not very hard for them to see why it does need to move, right? That I think it's easy for all parents to acknowledge that the world is changing tremendously fast. And I think when you start having them things for them to engage with in conversations, it doesn't take a whole lot for them to say, yes, I see it here. The world is changing fast. And my child is not going to be ready if school doesn't start changing. I have found it just that parents are very ready to embrace change in schools, very ready to support it. I think obviously I'm speaking of those parents that are in Modern Parent Academies and our Modern Parent Academy. And obviously we want to do a huge outreach then to the parents that are going to be in this one-to-one laptop take-home component. We're going to do just a huge outreach. We're going to work with them tremendously. The outreach will be there. The support in terms of continuing this academy and growing with those group of students is going to be there. So the parents is a group that we're going to work with. But honestly, I don't see it being an issue in terms of them embracing it and wanting to be a part of making it something successful. I anticipate a very positive response from the parents. In this brief experience, what parent wouldn't want a more modern learning experience for their child, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a given. It's a given that a parent's going to say, of course I would want that for my child. And obviously, I mean, who wouldn't, right? I think all of us, would want that experience for our own children. And so I think it's very exciting that we're starting this, because obviously it starts with 7 classrooms and it's a small group, but that's how things start. You start small. And obviously the goal of the district is to embrace and support and make this grow. But this gives us an opportunity to work at a very small scale within a lot of control, see it develop, and then take it from there. And then obviously a lot of work ahead of us, but it really is going to put us in a position where it really asks us to demonstrate the very skills that we want our students to be able to show in the classroom.
And how are we deciding, like, oh, this is the right device,
It comes down to looking at a lot of different factors, right? So it isn't just, there's you can factor in costs. Certainly, that's one of the things you can look at. But then you're also looking at the durability, the power of the machine, what you want to do with it, the leverages for resources and professional development. And so when you factor all those things in, it's when you're able to make a decision. So we're going with MacBook Airs. We were able to leverage a great price for them. I don't know what you would expect. What would you think we would pay for a MacBook Air?
MacBook Air, like $1,500 more or less?
We're getting it for $725.
Oh, wow.
$725 per student. So we were able to get what I think is a phenomenal price for the device. And then just when you think about everything in terms that Apple provides in terms of resources for instruction. I'm not sure you're familiar, but they have everybody can create curriculum, which is free curriculum. They have their coding curriculum they make available for free. So you have a ton of resources in terms of curriculum and professional development. They have their Apple Teacher program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their Apple Teacher program. So they have their Apple Teacher program, free program. We have, again, going back to connections to network where we can leverage some free PDS. Well, as a matter of fact, they'll be coming up and providing some short sessions for our K2 Academy, and they're going to do a session for our principals on Monday, April the 15th. So very, very excited to be able to have partners with you that can support teaching and learning with professional development, curriculum. And so you have a device that I consider very durable, very powerful. Interesting because you go back to, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Seymour Papert, but Seymour Papert was recognized as one of the greatest minds in terms of technology and learning. And he, as early in the 80s, when late 70s, 80s, as computers began to be developed and be placed in the classrooms, he made the prediction that in schools, they would go into a situation of providing the dumbest version of computers for students, right? Because they would look at buying the cheapest, right? And so when you look at that, and you saw, unfortunately, when you look at the huge explosion of computers in school, I think it came for the wrong reasons. I remember being frustrated as an educator that we couldn't get enough technology in schools. All of a sudden, the test was going to be online, and then boom, right? Huge explosion. But we're doing it for the wrong reasons. We're doing it so we can administer an online test. Yeah. As an educator and as a fan of educational technology, I embraced it because I said, well, whatever brings them here, then whether the right reason or the wrong reason, it brought them here. Let's make sure we make use of it much more than just for online testing, right? Yeah. We got to make the use of it. So I'm a big believer in the work of Seymour Papert, right? And Seymour Papert also made the prediction that, saying that computers would be used to program the child, but in reality, the computer should be purchased for the child to program the computer, right? And so we look at a lot of our practices, and not to be critical or anything, because it's just the way things are, and it's certainly not just Calexico, it's everywhere. We have a lot of programs where the kids learn from, they're on the computer and they do iRead, and not being critical of iRead. I'm sure it's a phenomenal program. I've heard great things about it, but we have way too many programs where the child is being placed on the computer, and the computer providing instruction or providing as a source of consumption for the child. And when we talk about this digital learning pilot, we're talking about really embracing the work of Seymour Papert and the work of many of other great educational, greatest minds in educational technology, of saying it should be the child programming the computer. Yeah. Let me have the computer do this for me, right? So you start thinking about coding, video production, AutoCADs. Think of all the things where students can be building, tinkering, creating, and the child programming the computer. And so you really start looking at what computer is going to give you the opportunities to truly help you embrace the goals of saying our students don't deserve what's cheapest, right? Yeah. It shouldn't be a goal of what's cheap. The goal here is not to buy as many as we can at the least. Everybody likes spending the least money possible. We all like spending the least money possible. But the goal here isn't increasing access. The goal here is really saying, what are our instructional goals for learning? And the goals are learning. That is the goal. And in anything we do, whether it involves technology or not, the goal shall always be learning, right? And so we live in a community with high poverty, and we know that. And I'll be very passionate to advocate that our students deserve just as much as students anywhere else, right? They deserve just as much as students in an affluent area. We shouldn't be going cheap because we're in a high socioeconomic area. Our students, and I'll advocate for this, and I always have advocated for this, our students deserve the best tools as any student in any affluent area, in any part of the country. And the goal is learning. And so when you look at that, you start making the decision, well, how can we leverage a great device? How can we leverage a great device that's going to leverage a tremendous amount of resources in terms of free curriculum, free professional development, that's going to really support where we want to head in terms of teaching and learning, and then you make that decision.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Something that I wanted to also talk to you about was PBL, project-based learning. I know you guys visited High Tech High. And you talk about the documentary Most Likely to Succeed. It's really, it's because it's like you're going from I don't know, like the wheel to like fly a flying car. It's like one spectrum to another. Talk to us about a little bit about project based learning.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, I think one of the things that I foresee us doing. One of the things that I foresee us doing soon here in the district, just involve around the conversations I think that we're going to come to a point where we're going to be working as a community to develop our shared mission and vision statement. We've been having a variety of different conversations where we know that our mission statement, which was written, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you what year it was, but needless to say, our current mission statement as a district is just tremendously outdated, right? And so when you have, and it's not the only reason, because certainly it isn't the only reason, but when you're looking at asking stakeholders and saying, what should be our purpose, our fundamental reason why our school exists, if you've never seen anything other than Calexico, then your answer is going to be revolving around what you've seen in Calexico, right? We're very fortunate that we have High Tech High, worldwide recognized school in terms of their work. That is just a 2-hour drive. They've been, because we're a Title I school, they give us, special discounts on our registration. We have a great partnership with them. We again, great networking. They'll leverage for us and work with us. We think this training fits your community, because I've been having ongoing conversations with them. It's just been great to be able to have a school that's successful and that recognizes it, also kind of be able to say, hey, and we also have some grant opportunities where maybe some of the trainings are free, provided by the state. So we've been participating in trainings in High Tech High through a variety of different formats, not just one, because they have different type of programs that they run. And really, I think sometimes the misconception when we take teachers to High Tech High is to say, oh, they want Calexico to become the next High Tech High. And I would argue that it isn't. As a matter of fact, one of the things that High Tech High will tell you on your visit, on your first day in a formal training, is to say, please don't come with the goal to replicate us.
Yeah.
We hope to be as a source of inspiration for you to go back and design something special for your schools, right? And so kind of going back to the same thing, if we want students to be critical thinkers, then we as adults got to be critical thinkers, because no one can solve the problems and the best solutions for our students other than ourselves, right? We're the only ones that can do it.
Yeah.
And High Tech High can't do it for us because they have a different population of students. And so it's really going to come down to us to look real deeply come together as a community to look at the best possible solutions for our students and across, the different schools and different levels of schooling here in Calexico. But High Tech High provides just a wealth of experience. I gotta give them a lot of credit that I've taken different groups, and sometimes and even though they have different trainings, sometimes it's a training that's a repeated one for me, and they're always evolving, always updating, always showing you what they're learning. And I just gotta give a tremendous amount of respect for an organization that says, as highly recognized as they are, you always see their learning and their progressions as they move forward, right? And so huge kudos to them. So the goal of Calexico is not for us to, when I work, and the groups of teachers that we take in are the groups of teachers that are part of our academies. Mm-hmm. That's really been, for the most part, and there's some exceptions, but for the most part, there's been a group of teachers that we say, you're in this academy, and if possible, we're going to give you this opportunity to go visit. And although I embrace project-based learning, the goal is learning, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest misconception. People think that, every time you go there, you're trying to kind of like convince other teachers to go project-based. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the lack of communication as to we're not really trying, like you said, you're not trying to replicate High Tech High. Mm-hmm. You're just getting ideas, seeing what works for you and whatnot. But I think that's what other people think when they hear that you went to High Tech High.
Yeah, and it's hard to control. It's a district that are very wide. I completely understand it. But really, the message is, when we start our work as a district moving forward to identify our shared mission and vision statement, it's going to serve us well to have stakeholders that have had an opportunity to see different. And certainly High Tech High doesn't have to be the only model. I mean, we can do visits elsewhere. And when I've done visits elsewhere, we've done some visits with other schools that are working with tech, with other model users of technology, but it doesn't have to be about technology either. I think one of the things that surprises a lot of teachers when they go to High Tech High, because the name is High Tech High and they expect to see a ton of tech.
Yeah.
And they really find out that there isn't a whole lot of tech, right? Because really the predominant model of instruction is project-based learning, working with your hands and your minds. It's not really about the tech. Now, do they have tech? Absolutely. But a lot of people, again, go with the perception, oh my goodness, I'm going to see a lot of technology because I'm going to High Tech High. And they find themselves very, very surprised. And so the goal really is learning. Do I think that working with your hands and moving with your mind really helps you to develop long-term learning? Absolutely. Do I think that when students are working in an environment where the standards that they're focusing on are interdisciplinary, that they're all connected as opposed to separated subjects? Absolutely, right? And so do I think there's a lot of things there that we can see? Yes. But the goal is not to become exactly like them. The goal is exactly just to get us thinking and saying, what do we want to accomplish for our students at this level? And just really build on the things that we want to do for our students. If someone wants to accomplish it through PBL, I would endorse it. If people want to accomplish it through blended learning, I would endorse it. If students want to embrace it from whatever instructional model they want, UDL, right, is the newest type of model that you hear right now, I would embrace it. Because it for me, it's not what instructional model you're using, what pedagogy you're using. What matters is, did you have some very clear intended learning outcomes for your students? Were those truly outcomes that are catered for them to develop their skills that's going to prepare them to be successful when they leave high school? And you heard me share the story about the superintendent from Tustin, where I said what I was really impressed with. He said, our goal in Tustin is to prepare students to compete for a job when they leave our high school, which I thought was hugely impressive, right? Everybody else wants to get kids ready for college. They want to get ready to compete for a job out of high school. And so I think a lot of that work, do I think it's great that we explore opportunities for our students to have internships? Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we end up doing those things, it's going to be because we saw it somewhere, whether it was there or another place, and that we're able to say, come together as a community and say, this is our purpose in Calexico. This is our shared mission, our shared vision. It's going to impact everything we do in terms of curriculum, in terms of LCAP and budgeting, and in terms of all our practices, not just the instructional ones, but in terms of all our practices, in terms of our infrastructure, right? Do we have changes that we need to make in terms of our infrastructure because our goals that we have for instruction are now different, or the goals that we have for our students are now different? Certainly, I mean, I can't speak to it with any level of expertise, but certainly having devices going home, I'm sure it's going to have some level of planning and impact in terms of what we do here from our infrastructure. Our students will have access in a manner that still have the same filters in schools. And there's huge level of concerns, but really we want to look at them as an opportunity to develop our students with a level of maturity, a level of responsibility. I mean, what an opportunity to say we want students to be responsible, right? And, and traditionally, a lot of times we look at developing responsible students as because we give them homework and we give them a ton of homework and we expect them to bring it back, right? That's how we know that they're responsible, right? Well, how about I'm going to give you a $725 device that they're going to be able to take home, take care of it, be a responsible citizen with it, and I'm going to ask you to produce something with it that's going to benefit someone else in this community. I mean, how's that for a level of saying we want to develop responsibility with our students? And it just changes the mindset and just changes our approach to work. And I think that oftentimes being able to visit different schools sometimes can spark just different ideas and possibilities. And sometimes, we can say, oh, but, our students are different. Well, we'll just take a risk and let's put a plan together and then let's do it. And if it doesn't work out, as a matter of fact, when we started with a cohort that we're really looking real deeply into real deep practices in terms. We're following the work from Will Richardson called Modern Learners. And so the work of modern learners really, to make it in simple terms, it really works at looking at three essential elements: is what are your beliefs about learning? How should what's happening in the modern world play a role in how you change how you do things? And then are you aligning your practices with your beliefs in this modern context? And when we started with that cohort, we started by doing a proof of concept. So we intentionally didn't call it a pilot. Right, because calling a pilot has the perception that that if it fails, then it failed. We're trying things out. A proof of concept comes more for the business world, and it's a model that says we're going to do something because there's a need to do it, and if it doesn't work out, then we need to revisit, revise, and redo again, because the reason why you're doing it still exists, right? And so it takes a different approach. So kind of saying that, I'm wondering why they wouldn't call it a digital learning proof of concept model, right? But in terms of it, we're still looking at. I know even though we're calling it a pilot, it still really is the same mentality. The reality is, our district has done an acknowledgement that traditional model of instruction just isn't working for our students. It's not working here. It's not working anywhere else. The level of engagement and enthusiasm and disenchantment with school is just ever increasingly. Yeah. And whether this digital learning pilot works or not, that still exists. So if it doesn't work, we need to go back to the drawing board and saying, how do we revise? How do we make it better? How do we move forward? Because I think we owe it to our students. We owe it to our students, and it's something that I'm just I'm excited about all the projects that we got going on, and certainly that digital learning pilot is one that we're really looking forward to.
So we're already like an hour and a half in almost. But like I want to ask you, like in the 5 years you've been here, what is something that you've done that you've said like, oh, you know what, that was my baby,
You know what? Honestly, I think a lot of it has just been me asking a lot of questions, because I don't think that there's a single thing that was done without me having the help of others. Sometimes I wonder if I annoy people, but I tend to ask a lot of questions, and there's a lot of questions revolving around take our professional development that we do now as a district, right, and how that has changed. Mm-hmm. It's just became one of those things where we say, how cool would it look like if we did PD in Calexico, like if it was a Q conference? Mm-hmm. If we had a keynote speaker and we had breakout sessions, how cool would that be? And you know what? Honestly, I remember when the idea sprung up. I was with Eduardo, and I was just thinking, it's not gonna work. No one's gonna listen, right? And I was I wasn't too optimistic about it. And things happen, they develop. You get to ask the question and say, wouldn't it be cool if we just had a conference in Calexico that looked like it was a big conference, and we did it on a Saturday, right? It was for free. We had George Kouros, who was phenomenal, and I was coming back to Calexico on June 8th. And the rest is history, right? We've had Marco Torres, we've had Eduardo Briseño, we've had Pernell Rip, we're having George come back. Just the level of talent that we've gotten in terms of our keynote speaker. And then look at our teachers who's been doing our breakout session. Mm-hmm. And you see the development of the breakout sessions as they've developed. And so I can't take credit for the work because it's been the work of a tremendous amount of people. I'll take credit for asking the question, how cool would it be if we change our professional development into a conference style, right? And then it was just a bunch of people, obviously huge tribute just to work in an environment where you're supported, in one of those yes and type of environments, and you support each other, and a lot of people come together. Our summer school program, same thing. How cool would it be if we had an academy where we did this and this? boom, a lot of people come together, they make it happen. Our working with our tech committee, working with our one-to-one environment, all those things have really been developed through a lot of process where a lot of people have worked together. And so I think, if anything, from my part that I've been proud of is just really leading a lot of conversations, leading a lot of interesting questions, and then being an active participant in working with others to make things happen. I'm real proud of the work that we've done here in Calexico. I think Calexico just has a lot to serve as an example in many areas. And I know there's a lot more ahead for Calexico in terms of what we're doing, but it's what I'm proud of is just to have been an opportunity to say, what would it be like, and then work with people in making it happen.
Where do you see the district in 5 years?
Wow, 5 years, kind of hard to look that far ahead.
I was gonna ask you 10 next, so
it's really hard to look that far ahead. I think it definitely. I like to say that it's really a district that is very progressive in terms of education. We have a lot of work to do, but I think that I really believe in my heart that the only way to go about in terms of education is being very progressive in our thinking. The world is changing. I think we have a lot of momentum going, and predictions like that are hard to make, but I like to think that the prediction is that it will stay the course, gaining even more and more momentum, and really just saying, the bottom line is, if we're all stop, reflect, and say, how can we make education better for students? I think the talent to make it happen is here. It really comes down to saying, it's kind of like what I was referencing in terms of modern moment, is how do we start really aligning what we do to really match what we believe in? I think in education, we get really busy. We live very busy lives, and it's easy to get distracted. There's a lot of noise. And I like to think that in 5 years, Calexico will continue on the path of really, guys, I see it, I've seen it kind of narrowing in and focusing in, and a lot of positive growth, and I see it still continue to move forward. Think about, First Robotics wasn't here 3 years ago. One-on-one environments wasn't here a year ago before. The quality of professional development wasn't here ago. I guess if you think back, what was not here 5 years ago, First Robotics wasn't here. One-on-one, well, we did have some one-on-one learning environments before, but it wasn't to the level that we had here before. Now, we certainly didn't have anything going home, because we still don't, right? We're looking at having that next year. So if we ask the question, reverting back, what did we have 5 years ago? I wish we could have the data here and say, well, how many devices did we have 5 years ago?
Yeah. Oh, right? I can attest to that,
What would you predict?
Before
1,000, maybe 700, 800.
Yeah.
District-wide. District-wide. And so if we look at all the growth in the last 5 years, and we see the momentum that we have carrying on, I have to just end it by saying, I can't wait. It's super exciting to think where we'll be 5 years from now, and I just think it'll be that much more exciting looking 5 years forward.
And thinking of where we've been and where we're now, I think one of the things that kind of has allowed us to grow so much is that, if you think about it, we've had a lot of fluctuation in terms of the admin, and you've been here 5 years. It's a little bit unheard of, for an admin to be in the same spot for that long of a time, and I'm sure that you've had job opportunities, but I'm guessing you're here because you like what you're doing here, and you see the growth and the change that's going on.
Yeah, and it's hard to predict, just so many different factors moving forward. Certainly, we all understand that, but I think to a certain degree, just working in an environment where you're supported makes a huge difference. Working in an environment where there's the willingness to be progressive has been very supportive. Working in an environment where you're serving a community where your own children and your own family works. My wife works here. My father used to work here for the district many years, and so those are all been contributing factors, right? And so it's been a big role working in an environment where it's just really like a family-like environment. It's just one of those things that has played a huge factor in kind of terms of longevity. I don't know if you've ever been here when you hear someone from the outside come in, but those of us that are involved when outside people come and do trainings here from all sorts of different people that come, they're all so impressed with the family-like environment that they feel here being in Calexico. And so we'll see what the next 5 years bring ahead. But I just think that Calexico has to find, and you're very right in terms of admin changing, and obviously stability plays a big role. I wish Calexico the best in terms of stability. But one of the things that is very, very important is that as a district that we do come together and we become very centered in what we want to accomplish. Because when you have very clear goals that everybody understands, then when you have changes in staff, then that doesn't matter, right? And that's key, because what you want to have things that drive the district is those shared mission, vision, goals, that shared plan, because then what drives the work is the plan, and you're not having people driving the work, but the work should be driven by the plan, and the plan will continue to roll and go with it as long as a district there's a huge understanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and that's what drives the consistency in making it grow as the years go forward. I know that at Jefferson, is always one of those things in the back of my mind, right? What will happen when I leave Jefferson, or I would work with teachers and they would say, oh, well, yeah, but what if you leave? That's one of the things the teachers would tell me, right? Yeah. Well, what if you leave? Well, what if it was always a big what if, right? Mm-hmm. And it was one of those works that I would always try to work with the teachers at Jefferson at the time and saying, we really need to be really certain about what we want to do so that when I do leave, the school will continue, and certainly.
So, what do you think about your replacement?
I think very highly of Mr. Alejandro Avina there, certainly, and I think I do think very highly of Mr. Avina, and I also think very highly of the staff. Right? I think the school is doing fine. I think it's been 5 years since I left, and I think the school's doing fine. I think but it was very real that they would ask. When we would talk about, well, let's do this plan. And they're like, but what if you leave? And it was really a legitimate, honest question that was answered. Yeah. And I said, well, we need to talk about why we're doing it, right? Mm-hmm. It can't be that we're doing this because it's the Mr. Padilla plan. It's got to be that we're doing this because it's the Jefferson plan. Yeah. And this is what we want to accomplish together. And we had a lot of things that we developed at Jefferson, especially in terms of the area of technology. There was a lot of things where the school was very progressive, a lot of high-end tech, with things that we're doing with Promethean boards, first school that had a lab with iPads, one-on-one instruction in the Valley. And there was a lot of things that the school was doing in terms of tech, and just embracing a culture of learning. It was always a big school that would really, really embrace learning for the adults, knowing that it would impact learning for students. And I think those things have stayed the course. And I think that's definitely in addition to a tribute to Mr. Avina and his leadership, it's also a tribute to the staff being very, very, having just a great culture within the school, and being very centered in terms of what they want to accomplish to students. And I think they're doing just fine. And
I interviewed Gil Revelar. He's a school board, elementary school board in Raleigh. Mm-hmm. And something that he said that really stuck was he went to go visit one of his schools, and the principal told him, oh, do you want me to tell you our mission statement? He's like, no. If you guys are following your mission statement, I should be able to see it on my own, without you telling me. And I think it also falls down on the staff, right? If you get a new teacher, if you get a new principal, if everybody's, following that mission statement or that mission, whoever comes in should be able to like,
articulate it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that what you said and what Gil said, kind of like it's in the same boat in terms of, if you believe it and if you follow it, everybody else is gonna, follow with you. So, so yeah, we're at an hour and 40. Anything else that you want to add? I mean, it's
just hard to believe that time flew.
I know, it's crazy.
Thank you for the opportunity. Jose, it was very much a pleasure, and it should. You ever want me to have for a repeat follow-up session? Don't wait 5 years.
Hey, but I've only had it for a year, so it's not like I waited 5 years. I've only had it for a while, and I hope that more people start listening to these kinds of things, because my goal at the end of the day is to inform the community, and I feel that you're a big part of the way our students are learning. Like I said, things are changing, and along the way, we're gonna me as a parent, and I feel that I have a kid in 4th grade, so sometimes I'm a little bit skeptic in terms of the way we're going, but I feel that if you're coming with an open mind, I'm kind of like today, like to me, it's like I've been saying, like, you're convincing me, and what we're doing here in the district, because the one thing you said that really stuck was, if we don't take risks, then why are we even here?
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, and I mean, in the future, if you have anything else that you want to share with the community, you're more than welcome. Just let me know, and I'm here.
All right, awesome. Thank you,
man. Thank you, Lucio. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one.